Morning guys and welcome back to the channel. Today's video was supposed to be a really quick one. I've been testing some AliExpress watches inside of Herman to see if we are good to swim with these watches. So I've got some footage I want to show you and some results to give you, but I've had a couple of watches turn up while the sale has been on. So I thought I might as well take this opportunity just to show you the two watches that have arrived. I've got an Escapement Time that I've paid for and a San Martin GMT, a very new release that has been sent to me for free to show you guys. So yeah, I've got a lot to get through, so I'm not going to hang around. I'm going to head over to the light box right now. Right, here's the first watch. It is an Escapement Time, and I think it is pretty good looking actually. Yeah, I really like this. It's quite small, a bit smaller than I was expecting. But yeah, I like the way it looks. I've had a good close look at the dial, and it seems to be very nicely made. There are a couple of weaknesses to this watch, which I'll run through in a minute. But yeah, I just want to give you a good look at it first. There's a couple of options available. This one with the gold hands and gold applied indices, and also an identical watch basically with silver hands and silver applied indices. But I went for this one because I just think it looks a little bit more vintage, a bit more retro. Case back's pretty cool as well. Look at that. Yeah, it seems to be very nicely made actually. Fully polished case, brushed case back, yeah, polished bezel, bit of domed crystal. I'll test the crystal in a moment. Screw down case back, pull push crown, date complication at the 3, and it is a quartz movement. Now I featured this watch recently in a top 10 new watches released onto AliExpress video, and I said fingers crossed the second hand hits the marker, because if it does, I think this watch stands a chance. And I'm pleased to say it's about as good as you can expect from a watch containing what is probably going to be a fairly cheap quartz movement. Just look at that. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's pretty much bang on actually. So yeah, it doesn't contain the Seiko VH31 unfortunately, which you'll find in the other Escapement Time dress watch. But yeah, still, I mean, that's not bad, is it? Strap seems nice enough actually, fairly thin and soft and malleable. Quick release spring bars, a stainless steel buckle, unsigned, fully polished, some contrasting stitching and a little bit of taper to it. Yeah, it is actually a nice strap. It reminds me a little bit of the Vario straps, although I'm sure it's not the same quality, but yeah, it looks a little bit similar sort of texture to it, similar size and dimensions. I think it looks good. Yeah, very nice. So it's looking pretty good. I'm actually quite surprised how much I like this watch, although I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as popular as the other dress watch for a few reasons. Firstly, this one, when you look at it as a percentage, is quite a bit more expensive than their dress watch. So yeah, you're going to pay more money for this one, and it doesn't house the VH31. That's one of the reasons why the other dress watch was just so popular. If the second hand hits the markers like it does on this one, it's not too much of an issue. But yeah, that movement was so popular because there was never a risk of the second hand missing the markers. So yeah, for people who generally love automatic movements, that was the best of both worlds, wasn't it? And the third reason is, well, that writing above the 6, I just think that's going to put a few people off. And maybe the size, actually, it's a bit smaller than I was anticipating. Let me quickly get the calipers. Wow, yeah, just over 35 millimeters, 10.9 thick, just over 42 long, and 18mm lugs. So yeah, it's not a big watch. The other dress watch came in a 40mm size initially, and then I think they made it available with a sort of 37mm case. So yeah, it's probably going to be too small as well for most of you. But for those of you still interested in this watch, here it is on my roughly average sized wrist. I'm actually really impressed with it. Yeah, I just like the way it looks. It's so cool, isn't it? Really cool. Doesn't look too small on my wrist. The size suits the style of watch. Super soft leather strap straight out the box. I think it's leather. I will double check. But yeah, I like it. Not going to be for everyone, but I like it. Right, here's the second watch I want to show you in this video. It is a new version 2 of San Martin's best-selling GMT by far. They have sold a huge number of the version 1 to this watch. I mean, it has been one of their most popular watches period. And yeah, they've made a new version. They're adding some new colors, and they've also applied the logo and made some applied indices for the dial. I think they are the most notable changes. The original watch also housed the NH34, and this one also houses the NH34. So I suspect this will also be a very, very popular watch. It is a beautiful watch. I'm not generally a fan of these full steel sort of sunburst brushed bezels, but when they're done nicely like this, I do actually like them. And yeah, I have shown some macro shots of the bezel on the version 1 in the full review, and it was impeccably finished, and I'm sure this one is the same. So yeah, I suspect this one is going to be another popular watch, NH34 powered GMT, and it is one of the cheapest GMT watches that San Martin offers. They're more expensive GMTs actually house the high beat Hangzhou 6460 it is, but this one and all the others housing the Seiko NH34 tend to be their cheapest GMT watches. You will pay a little bit more for this one over the version 1 because, well, I guess it's a new release, and yeah, more work has to go into making the applied indices and filling them with loom. So yeah, I suspect the loom will be better. That's another bonus, isn't it? Let's just quickly run through some specifications then as a quick reminder. Yeah, there's definitely some blue AR coating on that sapphire crystal, double domed box sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, screw down case back, screw down crown, 316L stainless steel throughout, solid end links, solid links, screw pins. Yeah, nice clasp as well, machined or milled innards. No on the fly adjustment on this one, unfortunately, but a beautifully finished outer shell. It's actually a little bit different to some of the clasps that I've been seeing recently. No polished chamfered edge running down the side of the clasp. What else have we got? We've got female end links. I've already talked about the applied indices and applied logo. Decent loom on this watch, no doubt. I'll do a quick loom degradation test in a moment. Obviously, the NH34 GMT movement has a date complication at the 3 o'clock. What else is there? I think that's about it, but I do need to mention the other 3 colours. So at the moment you can buy this sort of charcoal grey dialed version and a sort of sparkly silvery white cream dialed version, and they're also making really nice pastely sort of orange, green and blue dialed watches, which you will need to pre-order, and they are offering a discount, I think. So yeah, all the details in the video description if you're interested in picking up this watch in the sale, because I think that discount code applies during the sale. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to have seen an orange dialed version, but having seen this one, I think that's highly unlikely. But yeah, it looks stunning, absolutely stunning, incredible watch. I can totally see why this is one of their best selling watches. Beautiful. Right, let's quickly test the loom over a 5-minute period. I'm going to let the loom degrade for those 5 minutes, and hopefully at the end we'll know whether or not the loom is any good. Right, well, that's been 5 minutes, and yeah, the loom is still visible. It's not the best loom I've ever seen, but it's still very visible after 5 minutes, which is a good indicator, yeah, that the loom is better than average. Right, here's this watch then on my roughly average sized wrist. You'll see all of the dimensions and weight in the bottom right hand corner. I don't think they've made any changes to the bracelet and the case, not that I can tell anyway, so looks the same and feels the same to the version 1. The changes mainly on the dial, applied indices and applied logo, and of course improved loom as a result. So yeah, good changes. I generally prefer watches with applied indices, so yeah, welcome changes as far as I'm concerned, and yeah, probably worth paying a little bit extra for, right guys? I'm now going to show you some watches either drowning or surviving inside of Herman. Now, I've tested 7 watches, so I've got quite a lot to get through, so forgive me, but I'm just going to go straight to the results clip, the bit where basically I'm releasing the pressure and we find out whether or not the watches are any good. And I also want to explain, while you're watching the first few tests, which are the watches that I've just shown you guys, I also want to explain that I'm not going to be doing the ice cube test anymore to see if there's any condensation before or after these tests. And the reason for that is, well, I've noticed noticed that the condensation that forms underneath the crystal is leaving a patch on the underside of the crystal, which seems to be there forever. And I do give a lot of these watches away. I've given away close to 150 watches now, and I don't want to be giving away watches or trying to sell watches in the future with patches on the underside of the crystal. So I'm going to go back to my old technique where I just interpret the results from the numbers of bubbles that we see forming from the watch as I release the pressure. And the good news is the Escapement Time watch that I've just shown you, it has 50 meters of water resistance, releasing the pressure, 1 or 2 bubbles, not many at all. So I'm happy that that one has passed. And the San Martin I've just shown you as well, that has passed. So that's good news. I then tested another Tandorio watch, a dive watch with 200 meters of water resistance. I have tested 2 Tandorios in the past. They both failed, unfortunately. But I'm pleased to report that this one seems to have passed the test. Yes, you do get a few bubbles from dive watches when you form the tests like this because you have pockets of air under the crowns, under the bezels, and then as you release the pressure, that air expands and then it can't fit into those little nooks and crannies anymore, so it comes out in the form of bubbles. But anyway, yeah, long story short, this one passed. Yay! I then tested a Bleeger, not a Bernie, although there are a couple of Bernies coming up. I tested a Bleeger and unfortunately it failed in fairly spectacular fashion. The crystal at the front of the watch just popping out. So what's happened here is as I've increased the pressure when the watch was above the water, excess air would have been forcing its way into the case, and then when I drop the watch into the water and release that pressure, it was obviously released at a pace that was too quick for that air to escape slowly through bubbles. So yeah, as that air has expanded inside the case, it's just forced the crystal out. So yeah, massive fail. Next up, we've got a rather interesting Guan Chin. Yeah, it's an interesting looking watch, isn't it? But the good news is this one has passed a 50-meter water resistance test. And now we've got a couple of Bernies. This first one houses the awesome Seagull ST2130 high beat movement. And yeah, I'm pleased to report that this one seems to have passed. Obviously a few bubbles here and there, but as expected, nothing unusual. So yeah, I'm happy to say this one has passed. And the last watch is a dive watch by Bernie. And again, yeah, I'm happy to summarize that this one has passed a few bubbles once again, which we expect. But yeah, so out of the 7 watches I've tested, 6 passed and the Bleeger failed. Boo.